Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Sunday the 5th of October 2025. My name is Raja Mir. This is a Recusant 9 transmission. Thank you very, very much to those of you who continue to support me and make my work possible. I think we're in a fight. I think with what's come out this week and what's took place in Manchester this week also, we know we're in a fight. And we're in a fight against our government on one side, and we're in a fight against a whole host of nutcases on another side. And what we have is, well, the outcome will be we either save this place we call home, this nation that belongs to us, or we will lose it. It is as simple as that. I think the actions and the events of this week lead me to no other conclusion. I'd like to just thank a few people, please, just before we start. All of my work is only possible with your support. These super chats do make a massive difference. So thank you very, very much to those of you who are supporting me with these super chats. Thank you, Jane. Thanks, British. Thanks, David, Gary, Denise, and Elspeth. I had a friend called Elspeth. I remember. I very much enjoyed the name. So welcome, Elspeth, and thank you so much as well. From a lifetime ago. Okay. Some good news to start with, in the scheme of things. How much is good news you'll decide as we move along. Scheme of things, some good news to start with. So these guys got convicted this week. Rochdale grooming gang ringleader jailed for 35 years. They keep referencing them to as Rochdale grooming gangs, but they weren't Rochdale grooming gangs. They worked across a wider sphere. So this guy, Mohammed Zahid, who was known as Bossman, attacked the girls from when they were aged 13. So he's 65 years old now, and he gave the girls free underwear from his market stall and expected regular sex for him and his friends in return. The father of 3 showed a chilling disregard for the girls and one of 7 men convicted in June. So they've just now been sentenced. The others are Mushtaq Ahmed, 67 years old, Kashir Bashir, 50, Mohammed Shahzad, 44, Naheem Akram, 49, Nisar Hussain, 41, and Rohiz Khan, 39. Of course, they're all Pakistani and they're all Muslim. And the fact that they're all Pakistani and that they're all Muslim is kept from the article, as is the fact that they are also, the victims were all white and working class, and that's also kept from this article. So girls A and B, so these are 2 girls, were treated as sex slaves and expected to have sex with the men whenever and wherever they wanted. And the girls didn't know each other. So these are just 2 girls. And of course, we know there were many more girls. And these are some of the barbarians. Now, most of you will have read the article by now. And the sentencing is is the strongest I've seen so far. One guy got done for 35 years, the ringleader. So Mohammed Zahid of Crumpsall, jailed for 35 years. Mushtaq Ahmed of Corona Avenue in Oldham, and Kashir Bashir 50 of Napier Street, East Oldham. So these are Labour Party headquarters in Werneth in Oldham. Born in Pakistan, convicted of repeated counts, 27 and 29 years. The others 26 and 19 years. And the last one, Pakistani-born Rohiz Khan, 39 years. There are 2 points I want to make on this, if you will allow me to do so. First and foremost, you've got to go and look in the small print in the background. And I've gone and looked in the small print and I've released something, and I'll let you read it if you haven't read it. And if you have read it, or if you don't want to read it, I will record it as a spoken piece and I'll share it for you. The first thing I want to say is the police's behaviour is outrageous. The CPS's behaviour is outrageous. They allowed Bashir to flee the country and avoid facing trial. 2 others also nearly fled the country and then were caught on remand and put in remand only after insiders from, I presume, from within the community contacted the police anonymously. The police and the CPS have been in on this, and I want to know why Bashir did not have his passport confiscated or was not even put on remand. No one wants to say anything. It's like the elephant in the room you don't want to address. Another elephant. We're running out of space in this room. But Bashir should have had his passport removed from him. He should have surrendered his passport. The second thing I'll say on Bashir and the 2 others is Bashir is not the only person who's currently fled the country, the only filthy Pakistani rape gang member who's fled the country. There are many, many more. And the government is yet to haul in the High Commissioner of Pakistan, the Foreign Secretary, and demand that these men are identified and found in Pakistan, in Kashmir, where they're hanging out with the goats and the chickens, and they're brought back to the United Kingdom to face justice. And if the Pakistani government does not surrender this filth, then we will cut all ties with Pakistan, immediately suspend all foreign aid, and refuse another visa from that cesspit to come and rape our children. That is what strong political leadership would look like. Instead, we pander to these fuckers and debate with them as to whether or not we're going to help them build an airport in Mirpur. Sorry, I am absolutely fuming because it's been presented as, wasn't it great? They've got 35 years. No, one of them's ran away. And we allowed him to run away, and we've done nothing with the Pakistani authorities to demand his return. I guarantee you, if the 100 million or whatever it is in foreign aid to Pakistan was suspended, that this scrote would be on the first plane back. And every other filthy bastard that raped our children and then fled the country. That is what the story should be first and foremost. And then this scumbag, he has a barrister representing him at the trial. So he's fled the country and a barrister's making defences for him. There's something very wrong with our legal system. When someone who's fled trial can still have a barrister standing up and saying, he's a family man, he's a grandfather. Bollocks. He should have been given more than all of them put together. And the second reason why I'm fuming at this, and I followed this story with what's been written and what's not been written. Do you know how many girls there were in this gang? We don't get told. We know it's more than 2, but the police and the CPS won't tell us. But what was buried in the small print was an estimation of how many men were in this gang. Do you know how many men were in this gang? 200. And the judge pretty much said all of Rochdale knew, because they were filming gang raping these children and sharing their videos around so they could get more men out, more of their filthy cousins and brothers and uncles. $200. Where are the arrests for all 200? Or is it that if I phone up one of these Pakistani men and say, hey up, Kashif, you got any 12-year-olds knocking around for me for a Saturday night action? Me and my cousins can come round. We'll give you £100 each. Has cousin in me got any Viagra he's selling? But we're let off because we weren't part of the original grooming. No. That is absolutely outrageous. The police to this date have not identified or prosecuted any of the supply chain, any of the customer base. This isn't some dickhead buying cannabis. These are men who are gang raping children. They need to be arrested, they need to be prosecuted, and the police need to identify them, and of course they can identify them. The phone records will identify them. They are not going after them, and the reason they're not going after them is that they cross the line that says, okay, we've also got to arrest and prosecute those who paid to have sex with children, who paid to rape children, rather than the grooming gang members who profiteered from it and who actually recruited and, groomed and abused the children in the first tier. The police, the CPS, have made a decision not to go after what I refer to as second tier operatives. Because if they go after one, well, I suspect half of Oldham, half of Rochdale will be in prison. And if I sound frustrated, it's because yet again we've seen a newspaper article like this come out. We've seen people who know next to nothing about this subject on all the news channels, and I remain blacklisted from being given a platform to be able to communicate and raise what I believe to be very, very valid points. There needs to be mandatory seizure of passports, and if an assessment done to determine if they are a flight risk, and if they are, they should be put on remand immediately. For crying out loud, Lucy Connolly was put on remand. And secondly, the government, the Home Secretary, has to issue a statement confirming that there is no constraints on the police or the CPS to go after the customer base. The 200, the 500, the 1,000. 97 men they identified who were members of a rape gang in Manchester. What do you think their customer base was? 9,000? So that took place earlier on this week. And yes, Raja, see the positive. It was an outcome. 35 years is an outcome. But for me, it's far too little, far too late, and not enough. They've not gone after enough men. The judge said so himself. The entire community knew. And sorry, I'm on page with Rupert Lowe on this. I'm not apologising. I don't know why I said I'm sorry. I'm on page with Rupert Lowe on this. Mandatory deportations. If you are of Pakistani citizenship, automatic mandatory deportation. If you're of dual citizenship, then your citizenship is revoked in this country and mandatory deportation. All your assets seized and the funds transferred into a victims fund or a survivors fund, whatever the terminology you want to use. None of this is complicated. Yet none of our leaders want to have these conversations. They're happy to have the, whip up a bit of a frenzy and have the conversation contained in a certain way and then move on to tomorrow's news. I'm not here to move on. I want this dealt with thoroughly, effectively, and in such a way every last one of them pays. You had the Nazi hunters, we need the rape gang hunters. Every last one of these filthy scum pays, and as does every politician, police officer and public official who are complicit in the cover-up. Thank you so much, Callum, for the super chat. Grateful. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. Eamon, thank you so much. Lynn, how you doing? Not seen you in a while. Thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you. I'm not sure what your name is, but if they knew, you knew. Thank you. Roy, thank you. You every now and then you come along from, from miles away, and I'm grateful. When I see your name come up, it puts a smile on my face, because I genuinely worry. Thank you, Rian. Of course, Rian. Thank you. I genuinely worry as to where we're going with this, because we're not getting the numbers. I'll be honest with you, we're not getting the numbers. I said to you about 2 months ago, we were trying to get to 10,000. We're nowhere near. The government, Jess Phillips, has worked out that, okay, it's just Charlie Peters now and again, and they can contain it to GB News. And we've not got the numbers, and it's not growing the way we should have done. And they think they're winning. It's as simple as that. They think they're winning. And the reason they think they're winning is why this happened. Let me play it.
You'll remember in January we broke the news at GB News that the Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips had rejected a call from Oldham for a public inquiry, a government-led inquiry into the town, into its grooming scandal. After a lot of fuss was made over that story, the government then backtracked and said that Oldham would be among 5 towns to have local inquiries. In April, they said that those local inquiries could become locally led work following feedback from local authorities. You can guess what that feedback was. They didn't want inquiries. But Oldham was said to be one of the towns that was still going to have it. We've now had Baroness Casey coming forward recommending this national inquiry, and as I understand it, Oldham has consistently been told by the government that they will have this inquiry, and that's what the victims in the town and the survivors have been told as well. However, what we can reveal today, Martin, is that as recently as August, there's been a slight change in the approach from central government. I understand that a senior civil servant assigned to work on this case has told Oldham that they can have a truth project instead of an inquiry. Now, what is a truth project? Well, it ran during the independent inquiry to child sexual abuse, and it allows survivors and victims to come forward and share their accounts. There's no questioning, there's no further assessment of what they deliver, it's just recorded as useful testimony. But that's very different from an inquiry. Of course, it's much cheaper as well, Martin, but it doesn't lead to any justice. It doesn't lead to people being dragged in and forced to give some testimony. It doesn't lead to anyone being assessed for failing or misconduct in a public office. So I've heard a great deal of anger from survivors in the town since revealing this news. I've heard from one survivor, Jamie Lee Jones, saying that they need to be at the centre of this inquiry process. The government needs to commit fully to what it said it would do earlier this year. I've also heard from Amelia in Oldham and saying that she was lost for words, that assurances had been given to those women and girls and that this was a devastating step forward. But she said that survivors in the town would come together to make sure that the government hears that a truth project won't do, only a full inquiry will be permitted. Well, I have had a statement from the Home Office, Martin, who said to me that the abuse of children by grooming gangs is one of the most horrific crimes imaginable. It's vital we get to the truth no matter where it leads us. That's why we have announced a new statutory inquiry to direct and oversee local investigations with the power to compel evidence and witnesses and bring national resources and support. We are working on this work while taking the time needed to get it right. Work is underway to appoint a chair who will play a central role in shaping the inquiry, identifying the first local areas to be investigated and setting out how it will work alongside existing locally led initiatives. So, Martin, the question is there. Will a truth project be one of the locally led initiatives in Oldham, or will they get that inquiry that they were promised?
The truth project. Sorry, I saw a super chat. Tommy, thank you so much. And my apologies if they've took his passport off him, as you say, and surrendered. No. Venue. It's not enough, is it? Lucy Connolly was put in prison on remand. There was sufficient evidence here. Clearly, there was sufficient evidence here when they made a charging decision many years afterwards from when these crimes were committed. Every one of these bastards should have been automatically put on remand. Every one of them should be automatically put on remand. Let me tell you about the Truth Project. And let me maybe do this, if this works. Does it work? Give me a second, let me see if I can find it. Here we go. The 16th of January So Charlie Peters talks about breaking the story, and we all know it by now. We know Elon Musk, all of that. We released a letter to do with Jess Phillips refusing the public inquiry. A vote took place in September, October. She wrote back in, waited, sat on it for months. But on the 16th of January, 2025, Yvette Cooper attempted to sidestep a national inquiry, and she said survivors from Oldham could have a local inquiry. Remember the 5 areas? She named 5 areas and specified Oldham. On the 12th of February 2025, following Yvette Cooper's announcement, and I think the Conservatives lost a vote, didn't they? An amendment calling for a national inquiry, they lost that. On the 12th of February 2025, we forced, and that's with the kind support of Councillor Lewis Quigg, who risked his neck doing this. We forced, who's now the leader of Reform, by the way, in Oldham, he switched sides, ditched the Conservatives, leader of Reform. We forced a full council meeting. And at that council meeting, Labour thought they would scupper it. But we tricked them, we outmanoeuvred them. And we outmanoeuvred them in a way where in the end they had to vote on a motion that we'd picked rather than the amendments that they wanted. And that motion was to write to the government supporting a national inquiry. Every councillor in Oldham Council, including the Labour Party councillors, were forced to vote in support of a national inquiry, the right to government. Now the problem with that was, and I know many of you are new with me, the problem with that was the chief executive was a woman called Shelley Kipling. Shelley Kipling was involved in the communications team at the time of the cover-up of the rape gangs in Oldham. She's been over-promoted to chief executive to try and manage what's taking place. Instead of writing to the government, she just forwarded the motion, word for word. That wasn't what she was tasked to do. And of course, the government rejected it. And in March 2025, 12th of March, Labour leaders, that's Arooj Shah, who herself is neck deep in the cover-up, Labour leaders and council officials, Shelley Kipling, Alexander Bogotoff, the borough solicitor, Bent, again over-promoted and into his role in a dodgy way. What they're trying to do is manage the situation. So the very people incriminated in the cover-up hold a secret meeting and announce Oldham Council was pressing ahead with its own local inquiry. So even though a month earlier we'd forced the council to write to the government for a national inquiry, they decided that they were pressing ahead with a local inquiry, and they brought Tom Crowther in. And remember, Tom Crowther testified to the Home Affairs Select Committee, and it was a complete mess. He incriminated them, he incriminated himself in terms of he didn't know what he was doing. So in practice, Oldham Council voted for a national inquiry, but acted to contain the scrutiny. The local inquiries, of course, have no statutory powers, no powers to compel evidence, witnesses, and any of that. We continue and continue and continue the campaign. And in June 2025, my apologies, I think it was the 16th of June, Yvette Cooper stands up and agrees to a national inquiry. And now we're on the 5th of October. So 4 months, give or take. And what we've found out now is as soon as they announced the national inquiry, what should have happened in Oldham is that the local inquiry should have stopped. Immediately should have stopped. Any work doing that should have stopped. Instead, what they've been trying to do is do this truth. What's it called? Truth Project. The Truth Project can finish its work in under a month. And all it involves is survivors lining up and saying, yes, this happened to me, yes, that happened to me. Someone just recording it, and that's it. Tom Crowther is neck deep in the cover-up, Sian. Because Tom Crowther should be confirming he cannot, as a King's Counsel, he cannot continue with a local inquiry in any shape or form once the government had announced a national inquiry with statutory powers. These two things cannot run in parallel. It's just not right. Now, you might think, hold on, what's going on here? This is the playbook. We've seen it before. In Rotherham, the 2014 J report exposed more than 1,400 victims, but it was a locally commissioned review. The narrative was framed as systematic failings, rather than political choices. A year later, Louise Casey comes along and confirms dysfunction in Rotherham Council, and eventually the case was folded into the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, ICSA, and Rotherham became one of 6 case studies, I think. But it was absorbed into a vast national programme and treated as an example rather than a forensic inquiry into what specifically enabled the abuse, who specifically was involved. What they're trying to do with these truth projects, with these local inquiries, is limit the scope of the inquiry that may follow afterwards. Now, why would they do that? You've got to ask the question, haven't you? Why? No council leader, no judge, no politician, and no survivor should now be proceeding with anything other than through the national inquiry. There should be no parallel inquiries of any kind. No local processes, no truth projects, no listening exercises. There should only be one national inquiry. This isn't complicated. There should be only one national inquiry. And as soon as that national inquiry was announced, every and any parallel process had to cease. And our MPs in the town should be calling for that, but they are not calling for that because our MPs in the towns are the ones who will go to prison if this works through the way it's supposed to. And again, Raja, why are you doing this? I'm trying to explain to you something I wish I could explain to an audience of 1 million. So you'd understand it. And I'm not blaming Charlie Peters at all. He does an admirable work. But as long as I continue to be blacklisted and our numbers continue to be low, what I'm explaining to you is lost and Jess Phillips gets what she wants. Let me play another video and I'll show you. It's a follow-up interview, but you just need to listen to it and you'll see the confusion.
January, the government promised Oldham they would have a full inquiry. That promise was reaffirmed in April as the government provided an update on their work on these local inquiries. Then, of course, in June, Baroness Louise Casey announced that there would be this national inquiry after her recommendation, which the PM took on. But in Oldham, it's been now 9 months since that local inquiry was promised, and there still hasn't been any indication of what will happen. Now, what we can reveal today is that as recently as August, and as I understand it on several meetings, a senior civil servant who's been assigned to work on this with Oldham from central government in Westminster has proposed an alternative, that instead of having a full investigation, they might instead have a truth project.
I put it to Zia Yusuf, I'll put it to you as well. Is this government deficiencies? Is this somebody coming along and saying, look, this will save us a few quid doing this? Or what do you read into this?
Well, a truth project, for those so you can understand what that means. It happened during the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse that ran for 7 years. It allows people to come forward and share their testimony. They won't be questioned, they won't be challenged, but it doesn't actually lead to any justice or action afterwards. Obviously, every allegation or report of sexual abuse has to go to the police, but it doesn't have anywhere near the same powers of an inquiry. One source in Oldham told me that this truth project could wrap up in just a few weeks, bring people forward, invite them to share their stories, and then leave it there. That is not what people in the town want. It's not what they voted for. And survivors, when I brought this story,
what do people in the town want? I mean, this is what they're being offered. What do they want?
They want the full national inquiry to come to Oldham, of course, since that announcement was made. We've also heard from the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, in reaction to this revelation last night, saying that this was an attempt by the government to wiggle out of the process.
OK, Charlie, well, the government, from their part, from the Home Office, are saying the abuse of children by grooming gangs is one of the most horrific crimes imaginable. It is vital we get to the truth, no matter where it leads us. That's why we've announced a new statutory inquiry to direct and oversee local investigations with the power to compel evidence and witnesses and bringing national resources and support. We're getting on with this work while taking the time needed to get it right. Work is underway to appoint a chair who will play a central role in shaping the inquiry, identifying the first local areas to be investigated and setting out how it will work alongside existing locally led initiatives.
DC, over and done within 4 weeks. Truth project, the government statement, national inquiry. Well, actually, a senior civil servant sent there by Jess Phillips. She's the Minister for Safeguarding Girls, sent there by Jess Phillips. Civil servants don't make things up on their own. At the instructions of senior government ministers is trying to force this truth project, and of course the council wants it. The Labour Party council wants it. Because Jim McMahon, Debbie Abrams, Angela Rayner, they're all neck deep in the cover-up. Andy Burnham, neck deep in the cover-up. They want this truth project. And do you know what? Do you know what? Our council has been debating whilst they're trying to cover up excluding Oldham from the national inquiry. Remember, the councillors sitting on these meetings, so they knew. Do you know what our council has been debating, arguing, storming out of the council chamber? I think that, I know the last council meeting was suspended because one Pakistani faction was arguing with another Pakistani faction over who was doing the most for Gaza. And the Labour Party position, by the way, was to criticise those of us who called out the atrocities on October the 7th. They don't want the truth. They don't want the truth. And then I've got survivors messaging me. If that's not bad enough, I've got survivors messaging me. One of the survivors, she's not really a survivor of the rape gangs. She was gang raped, but she's not a survivor of the rape gangs in the way these two girls, like in the case studies and all the case studies. It seems I'm now a Muslim convert, and she's campaigning to prevent the CSE, the investigation, the inquiry, focusing in on the Pakistani rape gangs because it will give Tommy Robinson and Reform ammunition. So what they're also doing is rigging the survivors that they're talking with. So the ones that they're talking with are the ones they've already bought or are damaged enough not to know what's going on. And they're meeting with these survivors, leading them to believe that they will set the framework for the national inquiry. Now, I am very clear on my understanding of how a national inquiry works because I've gone and read the bloody paperwork. The sequence is a chair is appointed first, and they go about putting together a team and developing the terms of reference. It is not for survivors handpicked by Jess Phillips and her mates, some of whom are Muslim converts, because of what's happened to them is so messed up. It's not for them to set the terms of reference because you know what will happen. Jess Phillips and her mates will say, well, you know, survivor-led. The survivors have done this. And this is where I am up to. It will turn into a mess. They will get away with it. And I say this with no arrogance whatsoever. We would never have got this far if I hadn't campaigned the way I had. And I'm telling you now, we've not got the numbers. And I get someone saying, you know, change the channel name or so. I'm not going to change my name. Everyone knows what I stand for. I come at this from a different point of view. I know my agenda is straightforward. I want to hold us responsible, accountable, and I want to make sure that the survivors are supported for the rest of their lives and systems and processes put in place so it never happens again. I have no political agenda here. I'm not here to attack Muslims or Islams or anything like that. I'm here to safeguard children. And unfortunately, it seems sadly, that's not enough. And yes, Anne, it is still happening. Without a shadow of a doubt, it is still happening. And I think you asked Emily about Rupert Lowe's team. Remember, I'm one of the rape gang inquiry team. I've been desperately trying to get them to raise this. I get the impression they want to focus on a very clear process, of which the next bit is the testimonies from survivors, and I think that's what they're focusing on. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but they've got a method that they've agreed on and they're going on that. So that's what we're up to. And I don't know what more I can say. I don't know about the independent media. I've been trying. I go and say yes to every opportunity I have where I can speak to people. I say yes to every podcast sort of interview I can do. I caught the coach down to London to speak at a debating club event on Wednesday and caught the night coach back so I can drop my child off at school in the morning. There's not much more I can do. And you can see what they are doing. So, the next time one of you sees that everything I put up and ask you to follow Redwall and Unravel, that's the reason why. So I can keep you up to date with the information so you can speak to your friends, your colleagues, and we grow and we grow and we grow. And that's the only way we'll challenge this, and it's the only way we will win. And if you know of someone else who can do this better, tell me and I'll go and support them. I'll put everything behind them. Maggie Oliver has got herself backed into a corner with the funds she raised for the private prosecution's column. She's raised over £100,000 and she's got to go through with that, I think. That can be her only next move. And the numbers aren't increasing enough, I'm afraid. They're not. When they're increasing by 3 or 4 a day, it's not. I want to talk to you about the horrific terrorist attack. But I'm going to leave that till, I think, possibly tomorrow. I just want to focus today on where this government is currently at in trying to prevent a genuine national inquiry. And remember, we're in October. And someone messaged me wanting to do an FOI. They're not going to give you the name of the public official through an FOI. But you know where the name can come from? It can come from the councillors in my town, many of whom we got elected, to go and get me the name of the Home Office official, and I will plaster that name all over the internet. In the end, we've got where we've got to. Win or lose, we've got this far because of courage. And on this journey, sadly on this journey, I have come across so many cowards.
In London and Belgium. Check the PDF I sent.